Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 28th season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team, Neil Rhule of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 24/7 with Fight on State. And each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Harry's Construction, if you can dream it, we can create it. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Keller Engineers, delivering results, exceeding expectations. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
What I'm doing, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I drew it. Yeah, you know what it is. We doing it big. Look up, there is no limit, no, we cannot settle for this. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, spin on live. You don't believe it, just watch.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime. We are the NitWits, back from Ohio State. As usual, my partner Mark Brennan and a rising star in the local Penn State media, Landon Tengwall. Good to have you here, Landon.
Thanks for having me on. It's always a good time coming on.
We circled the Ohio State game for you. We knew there'd be plenty of analysis. 9 straight now they've lost to the Buckeyes. This one 38-14. The good news is when they get to play them out there again, the bleeding won't have stopped. It'll probably be dried because you're not going to play them out there till 2029. So that was the upside that I saw.
Yeah, I think it's kind of maddening with this team. You know, they show you in the first half what they're capable of doing, much like we saw in the Oregon game. For almost the entire Oregon game, well, at least the last however much of it, but they were right there. And then the second half, you know, everything fell apart. The thing that struck me is, you know, Terry Smith talked about 2 things being keys going into that game. Whoever wins the rushing battle is going to win the game. First half, Penn State won a rushing battle. Don't let the wide receivers get behind your deepest defender. And, I mean, it's like they identified the problems and then they didn't address them. They didn't execute it. And that, to me, it's like I was wondering, you know, with all the struggles with Franklin, did they actually know what the issues were? Well, they know what the issues are. It's just a matter of execution from the players and the staff.
They needed to play one of those DBs in Cleveland
to
stay back. Well, what about you, Landon, your football eye? What are the things that you saw that might have been able to be managed better? Did you expect a better game?
Yeah, as Mark said, I thought a couple of the key things you had to do to win this game was try to win the turnover battle. It was even there. You have to win on the ground. I think you ended under 60 yards rushing. You're never going to beat Ohio State with under 60 yards rushing. And then you let them get 4 40-yard-plus plays, 3 of those being through the air, and then the big run at the end. And that was kind of tough. But I thought the defense actually played a little bit better in terms of kind of being where they need to be. And a lot of times against UCLA and Northwestern, it looks like they were just getting abused. This time it was a little bit better in terms of assignment and being gap sound, but you just saw Ohio State had better players than us. I mean, Carnell Tate is likely to be the first overall wide receiver taken in 2026, and Jeremiah Smith is for sure going to be the number 1 wide receiver taken in 2027 NFL draft. So, and Julian Sand, I think, is the best quarterback in college football. He's sitting at an 80% completion rate. That is pretty much unheard of right now.
And then he hits 86% against Penn State. So again, it's you know what you're facing. The other thing is, we talked about it last week a little bit. Ohio State has guys stepping up and making plays. I mean, the wide receivers making the catch, saying doing what he needs to do. Denai Dennis-Sutton has an opportunity in that game to drop him for a sack. And that, I'm not saying that Penn State's going to win, but those plays aren't happening. And a guy like Denai, who we know how good he is, you're looking at a guy in Big Ten play who has 1 tackle for loss and no sacks. And I know he's getting a lot of attention. I know you can break this stuff down, Landon, but the best players are the ones who make those plays despite getting the extra attention.
Yeah, well, we really needed that sack from him right there. That was right after the 75-yard, 15-play drive.
Right.
It was 7-10. It would have been 3 and out. We had him at 3rd and 5. If Denai's able to wrap up Julian Sayin, they're putting the ball back, and maybe we could drive down, do a similar drive, and go up 14-10. But Sayin extends it, makes him miss, makes Keon Wiley miss. Missed tackles, I think, has been a big issue for this Penn State Nittany Lions defense. I mean,
And that's not a running QB. I mean,
Right.
I was more disappointed. I mean, you go out there with a backup quarterback, and your first 2 starts for him are at Iowa and at Ohio State.
Yeah.
So I did not expect their offense to really light it up. I thought they had to keep the score down, and the defense had to show up, which is why I was more disappointed actually in them. And you touched on it. I mean, you had no sacks. Not just him, but the whole team had no sacks.
1 quarterback pressure.
You were supposed to have one of the better defensive lines and one of the better secondaries that you've had preseason. So that's where I was. I thought the defense really kind of let them down even more, even though there's a laundry list of offense.
Well, what about the juxtaposition? I mean, you have Jim Knowles who comes in here and apparently has some quantum physics defense that nobody could figure out. Matt Patricia goes to Ohio State. I think they were on the same timeline, right? I mean, but weren't they both just hired this year? I'm saying that facetiously, but that defense didn't look like it's that complicated to learn.
But I agree. I mean, they turn loose the players they have on both sides of the ball, and that's just what was missing. I mean, to me, they got away from the run again. You bust a 26-yarder, they come out in an extra offensive line and a lineman, and then you really didn't stick with it long enough, I think, to keep the game closer.
Yeah, there was a lot of that from the Penn State offense. That 7 offensive lineman set ran that toss play 3 different times in the first half, 3 times, 35 yards and a touchdown. And guess what you do? You don't run it a single time in the second half. I said if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I guess Andy Kotelnicki's never heard of that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, we will dissect. You mentioned Andy. He'll be mentioned again here in the next segment, right after this.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Reed and Salaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntingdon. And by Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Landon, that's an official welcome or re-welcome to the NitWits. Yeah.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Hey, and a shout out, Landon, not only for what you're doing on social media and in the media and whatnot, but don't forget this guy had the opportunity to be a hell of a player, but some medical issues. I hate to bring up a bad thing, but don't sleep on what this guy had the opportunity to be. And I think it is magnificent that even though you had a tough hand dealt to you, what you've been able to turn everything into. So very, very proud to see what you've been able to do.
Thank you so much. You've been there from the beginning. Wrote my first article. I was in 8th grade when Mark was first covering me. So no, it's I've always learned no matter what happens, just continue to put my head down and grind through it. And I love what I do. I would say even almost more. I don't have to bang my head into people every single day. Body feels a lot better doing this, so I have a lot of fun doing it. I get to come on NitWits here, so
Well, speaking of banging the head against the wall, the offense yesterday gave us a perfect opportunity there. I'm not sure why they're not using Singleton and Allen more in tandem somehow. It seemed to work when they got down in the red zone. I feel bad for him. He just doesn't have the room, and it's just not really working out, but he's still a leader. And what are you seeing with him?
Yeah, I think Kotelnicki did a good job finally utilizing him in a different way. It was just, hey, we're going to get you in space and get you on the edge. and just let you put your head down and let's go full speed ahead. Don't make him make decisions. Don't make him be in the backfield and have to pick a hole. Let's just get you on these sweeps, on these end arounds, and just use your speed to get to the edge. And worked out a couple good times there.
The deep passing game that Terry Smith talked about, getting it down the field. Landon, you know offense better than we do. Explain why that is important, and how shocked were you that when all we heard was deep passing, and then we don't see any of it?
I can't say I was that shocked.
There you go.
With how many things
well played.
With how many things we've been told it didn't happen, I wasn't fully shocked. But no, it's incredibly important. It's actually one of the more important things, because if you don't even have to complete them deep. You just have to threaten them deep and give these safeties and these cornerbacks the idea that, yeah, I might throw the deep ball on you. Because if you don't do that, how like Penn State hasn't been, the safeties can start to creep up. You get a couple extra guys in the box for the run game. And so Caleb Downs, instead of having to press back a little bit because he's worried that Devontae Ross might take him over the top on a post route, he says, I'm going to creep down to the box and I'm going to make life hard on Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton. And so that's what you saw, a lot of that. And it's hard to get going, and you see the wide receivers struggle to get going because they're not getting in rhythm. It's all, the amount of wide receiver screens we ran yesterday, guys.
Hey, Corey tried to do it 2 years ago. James wouldn't listen to him.
Well, I think Singleton had a stat where he had 28 receiving yards, 36 yards after the catch. So think about that. He was, and I guess that's part of it with the running back, but it just goes to show they had so many yards after the catch and so few.
The chemistry, he had a couple. He had Hudson open early. He had Pena open and it just doesn't seem like it's there. These guys aren't coming back to the ball or settling, because I didn't think he played too bad.
You live with a kid making a mistake,
right? And
that's where I said it last week. When is somebody going to step up and make plays for him? Okay, not all those passes were catchable. A lot of them weren't catchable, but who has made a tough catch for this kid? In 2 games, has there been one play where you've said, wow?
Kobe Howard yesterday made a good catch.
Yeah, there you go.
Longest of the day, longest air yards of the day.
Another promise that was made that wasn't, we were going to see more of Kobe Howard and Tyseer Denmark, I think.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. You got 3 plays for Liam Clifford where he has the ball in his hands. You got 1 end-around pass play for Liam Clifford that made no sense, and you have 2 wildcat quarterback plays for Liam Clifford. And if you're telling me we can't find a way to get Kobe Howard some snaps and some passes, right, but we can find 3 plays for Liam Clifford to play quarterback.
Yeah,
it's hard to reconcile.
And they got Smolik hurt the week before at Iowa. One thing that came up in this game, because as you mentioned, a few plays that go the other way, and maybe they're in it longer. I don't think any of us are sitting here saying they would have won, but the kickoff return, it's 24-14, and the kickoff isn't handled. And now you're pinned deep, and I think that was a big play. And they haven't committed to Corey Smith back there. Maybe that's why, but I think that's contributed to it. Do you really need Singleton back there?
Overall, their special teams have been very good. I think one of the bright spots, but that I just find it hard to believe. This isn't like the NFL where they're doing these, pooch kicks that are really screwed up. I thought King Mack looked good earlier in the season. Why not pick one guy and stick with him, I guess is my point.
How many guys have we cycled through? I haven't even really thought about it that much.
Hudson's back there.
Make a decision.
Yeah, Quentin Martin was back. He wasn't even on the last trip, and now you have him back there, and then he catches a kick and screws up. So what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. Big Gabe did a nice job yesterday. He had a good game.
MVP.
Punting the ball, yeah.
And that tells you all you need about that game. You need to know about the game. When your punter's your MVP, that's not necessarily a great thing.
Okay, of course, we don't want to bury the lead. They are in the midst of a coaching search. We'll be back to dissect that right after this.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Dorman's Jewelry. The answer is always Dorman's. And by Harry's Construction. If you can dream it, we can create it.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back. We're looking at the search that's now going on to replace James Franklin. That's really sort of overshadowed the rest of the season, although we'll get to the Indiana game. And really, it's so unique. It's the first time kind of in Penn State history that they've done this for a head football coach. I mean, and I wasn't around when Rip passed it to Joe in February.
I thought you were doing Rip got the job.
That's my one regret. Mike Poorman met Rip Engel. I never was around him. But, when they hired O'Brien, it was obviously a crisis situation. And then James was hired pretty quickly. That's why you see now, and everybody kind of has a running start. When Auburn today fired, that's about 8 power jobs. But, it's James was hired in basically a couple weeks. So how do you see this whole climate and how it's going to affect Penn State's search?
Yeah, first off, it's weird for me. I was a big-time NFL guy growing up, Steelers fan. Good day for us against the Colts. And so I didn't really watch college football until about 2015 when I started getting interested in wanting to play. All I knew was James Franklin as the head coach of Penn State football. So It already feels weird for me that he is now gone. I think it's a tough time. I think this is one of the craziest coaching carousels in college football history, maybe, and it's something you don't necessarily want to be a part of generally. So that's where we're at right now. I think you've got a couple top candidates that you're looking at right now. Obviously, Brian Hartline just faced him, and I think that's one of the hottest names out there, Ohio State's offensive coordinator. He is kind of the prototype. If you were to hire him, you'd be following along with the likes of Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, Marcus Freeman, Ryan Day, where you have a hot coordinator that is kind of green, but you hire him and he brings that enthusiasm, that young energy, a fantastic recruiter, and brings that on over. So I think you're looking at that. There's some other guys, Braum from Louisville. You're looking at Key from Georgia Tech. I think Manny Diaz is a familiar name at Duke that just knocked off Clemson, but that's maybe a little bit more of a safety net option, someone you're familiar with. So a lot of names being thrown out there, but I personally think Penn State has to make this decision sooner rather than later. I don't think they can't wait deep into December. I think this needs to be decided the Sunday after Rutgers.
Matt Rhule took himself out of the running if he was really in it. I think I read that as he kind of knew he wasn't going to get the job, but he was a name that had been out there.
Yeah, I mean, Hartline, if it were going to be a coordinator, I mean, at the college level, I think he would be the guy. I'm intrigued by Joe Brady, given the Pagula stuff, but he wouldn't be a guy who would be able to bring half of his team, obviously. It'd be nice if they could bring half of the Bills.
Just bring Josh Allen.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think Braum, to me, I look at that guy and you see what he's done at some places that are very difficult to win. And if you measure up what he's done to this point of his career, and bear with me here, to what Saban did before he got to Alabama, it's really not that different. I mean, they're both guys who started off at a small college level, worked at maybe not the super powerhouse team in a big time conference at MSU for Saban. So I'm kind of throwing it out there. I'm not saying he's the next Saban, but I wouldn't mind taking a risk on a coach like that who's been successful.
Well, not only that, but he's an offensive-minded quarterback guy. And to have a better offense than we have seen, for what it's worth, and you're always down there, do a great job with your Brennan camera.
Thanks.
I saw where Pat Kraft, who's also on the field almost as much as you, said had a moment with Day afterwards. So I don't know what that meant.
I have no idea. I do know this much, that Pat Kraft, when he made this bold decision, and I don't mind people making bold decisions, but now, I mean, every spotlight is on him. We're going to see what this guy's all about. I mean, this could be his job that's on the line if he doesn't make the right call here.
I think it definitely is. I think if you're Pat Kraft, you were at Temple and you were at Boston College, and if you ever make mistake hires there, no one really cares. You're now at Penn State. Your entire career rides on this. You wanted to fire James Franklin, as much as I think many people agree that it was probably time to move on after 12 years of everything that happened. But I still think you fired someone that had just won 10-plus games 3 seasons in a row.
And in the middle of the year.
And
help contribute or trigger this national trend.
At least he hasn't had the governor come in and try to take over the coaching search. So that's been a
Urban Meyer's another name that has come up. And he spent most of the game with Jay Paterno in the end zone, so they have a rapport and are friendly. For what that means, Jay's on the board. But
if Urban gets the job, we're going to see the whatever. What was that?
It's got to be contingent on
Galen. Yeah, there you go.
Spread HD offense.
Thank you.
Galen's got to be able to come back and help.
Oh my God,
I love Galen. Anyway, fascinating. And you said you think it needs to happen soon. Do you want to elaborate relative recruiting, the transfer portal?
Yeah, so right now, National Signing Day, early signing day, but this is basically when everybody signs nowadays, is December 3rd. So that is 4 days after we play Rutgers to end the season. You have to have a coach ready to try to salvage that. Penn State has lost the majority of their 2026 recruiting class. A lot of guys decommitting, especially top names. So you got to find a way to salvage that somewhat pretty quickly. And then the biggest thing, and I guess this is kind of the comforting part, is that a rebuild in 2026 is a lot different than a rebuild in 2016. You're able to do it a lot quicker because you have the transfer portal, but you have to capitalize on said transfer portal. Opens up early January. You got to have a coach. And nowadays, just because that's when the portal opens, that doesn't mean that's when agents and players start talking with other teams. When that portal opens, half the people that are entering the portal are already decided where they're going. So you got to start having those conversations with agents, other players, very quickly. So I think it's uber important to hit the ground running with this.
And it probably takes big swings at like Elko and guys that are in, I don't think they have a shot at Freeman.
Unless there's talk among the agents and you're willing to sacrifice one recruiting class knowing that you're going to get a big-time person. The other thing I would say is that if you're able to do it, you want to get a hire made before Franklin gets a job, because when he gets a job, when the transfer portal opens, there will be a lot of players who follow him wherever he goes. So you would love for the new coach to be able to at least make a pitch to guys for why you want them to stay at Penn State.
Okay, they do play Indiana. They're going to try to break a 5-game losing streak. We'll address that game right after this.
The NitWits are being brought to you by DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Keller Engineers, delivering results, exceeding expectations. By Lions 24/7 with Fight On State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Well. Welcome back to the show, and some breaking news. Hopefully all you loyal viewers know what we're talking about. And don't get nervous with me in your rearview mirror. I mean, I know the guest won't, but you might.
I'm much more worried about Landon this week. I can tell you that. He knows more about football than both of us combined. So.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What a job Curt Cignetti, who basically inked a contract extension about an hour after James was fired. Pennsylvania guy. You talk about a guy, you mentioned Brom, that humble beginnings at IUP and some smaller places, but wow, his offense and the way he puts up numbers, he sort of hangs 50 on anybody he can. And he's got a great quarterback that they were able to have. So we'll give our picks first, and that's me. Hey, they haven't been home now for about 3 weeks. And this is an opportunity to kind of recharge the battery. James isn't there, so they won't boo him before the game or during the game.
You don't know that.
I think this is
they'll find a way.
At a hockey game, maybe. I just think that this is a real character test and an opportunity for the Penn State community. Terry's first game as a coach in the new stadium. I think Penn State's going to hang in there. I'm going to say 30-23 Indiana.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I'm looking at this a different way. Ohio State, I think, could have scored way more points if they had Julian Sayin throwing the ball. If they really wanted to run up the score on Penn State, I think they could have. I think Indiana needs to run up the score. I think Indiana needs to make more of a statement because they're not the proven commodity. So I think they're actually going to win by greater than that. I'm going to go with 35-14.
Wow. Laying down the gauntlet.
I think this Indiana team.
No pressure. Him as the guest.
How have the guest records been? They've been pretty good.
They're tied for first place.
All right, here we go. Let's see if I can take us to first place in sole leadership. This Indiana team, 5 games of scoring over 50 points. Fernando Mendoza is one of the Heisman candidates, one of the leaders for that. The defense is lights out. Saw what they did to Oregon and really shut down that offense. Going Indiana 45, Penn State 10.
Wow.
I know, it's a rough one. I felt bad giving my pick, but I'm leaning towards Mark a little bit more in terms of this going.
Neil's looking at revenge for 1994 when Penn State was the title contender.
Yeah, you shouldn't have put the backups in.
Right. Put the backups in and Indiana stormed back.
You know, what a great story out there, though, and what a rising star. Although, you know, he's 64 years old.
I know.
Cignetti, so he's
You're
really
the only guy in this descent older than he is.
All right, on that note, they're telling us to wrap up. Landon, always a pleasure to see you guys. We got Justin Kirpakis next week.
All right.
We'll see you then.
The Nitwits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Harry's Construction, if you can dream it, we can create it. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Keller Engineers, delivering results, exceeding expectations. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.